Welcome to another episode of Your Money, Your Mission, the podcast designed to turn complex financial situations into actionable advice, powered by Johnson Financial Group. I'm your host, Kelly Mould, and today we're diving into one of life's most challenging transitions, going through a divorce. We're going to speak specifically about how to navigate that financial side with clarity and preparation. And joining me today is Liz Pfeuffer. She is VP Wealth Fiduciary and Estate Administrator. Liz was also a court commissioner and often dealt with divorce cases. She did this for a number of years. So she brings real-world courtroom experience to our conversation today. Welcome, Liz.
Thanks, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
So before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Your Money, Your Mission wherever you listen to podcasts for consistent financial guidance delivered to you every other week. So as we start this conversation, we know that when people decide they're going to make this really difficult decision, which is so emotional and so hard, there are some things that people can do to prepare for that initial hearing and to prepare for even prior to filing. There's some financial ramifications that they have to think about and some financial needs. And there is, of course, that difficult decision about determining if you want representation. So let's start with somebody makes this decision and they need to start preparing these documents or pulling things together. What would you recommend that they look for, they do? How do they start to get ready for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Super important to be organized. You should know more about your finances going through this process than any point in your life, basically. Mm-hmm. You can't expect an attorney to help you if you don't even know what you have or what you owe. Mm-hmm. This is a great time of year. This is tax return time. So grab your tax returns. Maybe 3 to 5 years would be good if you can find them. Otherwise, 2-3 years. Start getting that organized. That will have a lot of attachments to it, of course. That also helps you. Mm-hmm. Retirement account statements, bank statements, get any realty documents that you have, your titles, see how they're titled, deeds, things like that. If you have insurance, also, that's important. Whole life is important. That's got a cash value. You're going to want to know what that value is. That's all your assets that you want to gather together, get organized. But then your debts as well. Credit card statements can be super helpful. Any documents for vehicle loans, your mortgage statements, things like that. So start gathering that. I like to think you hang out by the mailbox every day, right? And so when bills come in, when statements come in, you're taking those. Normally we look at them and
toss them or pay
right?
Right, deal with them.
But if you're considering a major life change like this, it's important that you hold on to them and start understanding what they mean and keep track of them. You also can access your pay stubs. Most of us don't get those, like in the old days where you get the envelope and you look at it.
Right, it's usually all online right now,
Yeah.
So making sure you're pulling all that together.
Get your pay statement, see what's coming out, see what benefits you're paying for and your spouse as well. So get access to those, print those out, kind of keep a folder where you're just putting everything in there so that you can get organized. And then any estate planning documents too, because you're going to want to have like we already mentioned, the life insurance. But if you have wills, if you have trusts, you're going to want to get a copy so you can see those, have access to them.
Right. So that's a really important point to make sure you're doing it. It can get more difficult once the action is filed to have access to that, and things change a bit once that filing started. So this preparatory work in the beginning is really crucial.
Definitely.
So then people usually think about, how do I want to do this? We hear that there's been a significant increase in pro bono cases, clients who show up at the courts without representation. And I know there's a couple of causes to that. One is people get concerned about the cost of an attorney. And the other issue is that we live kind of in a do-it-yourself society where everybody thinks that they'll just read the instructions and it'll go well. And full disclosure, that I also was a practicing divorce attorney for a number of years. And one of the things that I saw was that pro bono clients oftentimes just didn't understand the nuances, not just of the statutory law, but also the jurisdictional rules, the courthouse rules, some of the things that would make it really difficult for them to navigate. What's your thought on how should someone, well, first of all, should they have representation? What do you think? And in the event that they choose that, how do they make that decision?
Lots of great questions in there.
Sorry.
No, I think And I'm an attorney as well,
Right,
full
right,
disclosure. So
right.
I think that anytime you have a major life change like this, you should get legal advice. You should get an attorney if you can afford them. Obviously, not everyone can, and those are special circumstances. Wisconsin is very pro se friendly. All the
Yes.
forms are available online. There's instructions. The less assets, the less debts you have, the better that works for you.
Right.
But when you have, even if it's just retirement and life insurance, even if it's just a few assets, and you might think, well, it's not that complicated, it can be complicated, and it can get complicated quickly if you're not prepared. I think one thing that is turning into, I don't want to say problem, but an issue is AI, and people sort of asking AI for all this guidance, and they call it hallucinating. When they tell you it hallucinates legal information and it'll cite a case for you and it's completely wrong. It's made up. I mean, AI is only as good as the other side of things. And that is leading people astray because they think this is Wisconsin law. You know, AI told me this, and it's not at all.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of talking to your friend or neighbor who said this, right? It's just as reliable in some situations.
Exactly, because friends and family only heard from their attorney what they wanted to or their perception of it, and it may not be accurate.
Right. Different circumstances, different fact patterns, different jurisdictions.
Exactly.
Things change.
And people have to understand these are permanent decisions you're making and permanent orders. It is not impossible, but virtually impossible to convince a court to reopen your divorce case. Once you have that final settlement, once it's been signed and approved and filed, you're pretty much done. It's really difficult to prove the fraud necessary or to get that reopened. These decisions can affect you the rest of your life. So whether it's alimony, we call that maintenance, whether it's for child support purposes and the amount, which you can revisit, but they're only under certain circumstances.
Right.
And then the debts and assets, once you divide those up,
It's done.
good luck convincing a judge to reopen it and redo all of that. And if you don't have the right information, the right guidance, you might be making mistakes. And when you find out after the fact, it's too late.
Right.
It really can be too late for you. So even having an initial consultation with an attorney, getting some guidance, and if you are getting along really well with your spouse, it sounds counterintuitive, but as a family court commissioner, I saw a lot of people who got along, but they didn't want to be married. So there are mediators that can get involved and mediating attorneys especially who know family law, who know exactly what needs to be done, and they will work with both parties at the same time to get the documents done and filed. And they can explain, they can't advocate, and then I think that really helps people.
So one of the things that I've heard, and maybe you have as well, that people go, I really want an attorney that's a bulldog, that's aggressive, that gets in there, that fights. I've heard about this guy or gal that does it this way, and I just think that's great. What's your opinion on that?
It depends on what somebody wants. So what are the outcomes? If they want scorched earth, tear the other person down, that's what they're looking for. The vast majority of people don't want that. I didn't see that in private practice. I didn't see that in the courtroom as the court commissioner. I saw people who just wanted to separate their lives for whatever reason, whatever decisions they had made. And I think there's a difference between someone who's a zealot advocate and then who is the scorched earth pit bull type attorney.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. So zealot advocate doesn't necessarily mean that they have to destroy the other person. It means that they are going to go ahead and make sure that you understand what decisions you're making, what the ramifications are, the long-term and the short-term consequences, and that they can advocate for your interests. They'll give you the options. It's always your choice at the end of the day, but having someone who can advocate for you, you might be emotional. You might not be able to stand up for yourself. They can help with that, with your guidance, right? If you want someone who is too aggressive, that really can backfire in the courtroom and long-term also.
Yeah, financially as well. Yeah,
definitely. So you are paying them by the hour, by the minute for their time. And so the more things that can be drummed up and done and fought over, some things are necessary, other things are extraneous, and it's too far. And now you're ending up taking all of your assets and giving them to the attorneys who are involved, and it just exponentially grows.
Sure.
And the longer it takes, the more you're spending.
Right.
Because as a court commissioner, so I wasn't a judge, we're lower than the judges. They select us. We do a lot of the intake. We can do final divorces if everyone agrees. And the vast majority stayed with me. We were able to complete everything there because they agreed on everything. Right. And that can be done in Wisconsin. There's a 120-day waiting period. Can't be done before then unless there's emergency circumstances. But we would have people divorced on day 121, 122, because they just were in agreement. They had all their paperwork done, and it was finished. Then you'd have some people who took a little longer. The ones who have the pit bull attorneys, the aggressive, who wanted to fight on everything, they would stretch that maybe into a year
or more.
And then you hear the horror stories where it goes on beyond that. And most Wisconsin courts aren't like that. There's time frames, but it really can drag on. And cost you more and more with that.
And that certainly is, it's and not just financial, it's an emotional cost, too.
I was just thinking that too.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. As a court commissioner, one of the things that you would be responsible for was this initial hearing. And at this initial hearing, you would have your first peek at what they call a financial disclosure statement. That's what you were advising everybody, get this paperwork, but it's for this financial disclosure statement. And that's probably more important than people think about. Can you tell us a little bit about both the financial disclosure statement and that initial hearing?
Sure. Not every divorce needs an initial hearing.
Okay.
But every divorce needs financial disclosure statements, and you have 90 days to get them filed. If you do have an initial hearing and you're asking for temporary orders, you have to have it filed before then. And I always thought it was better to have it ahead of time because then the court commissioner can actually see it. When you hand it to them when they're on the bench, they're kind of shooting from the hip. But
this is no small document either. It's got everything, every single asset, your expenses, your debts,
your budgets.
Your budgets.
Yes.
There's just a lot here.
Yeah, it's 11 pages. It's incredibly detailed, down to how much tax is coming out of pay stubs, how much your health insurance costs. And these are important for temporary order hearings when you are dividing up costs and figuring out who's going to pay what. So now that you've got your folder, you've got all your paperwork, you've been collecting it for a few months, that's where you write it all down. That's where you make attachments, you put it in there, because by law, you have to file a financial disclosure statement. Okay. If you refuse to do that, the court could rely completely on the other party's financial disclosure statement, to your detriment, possibly.
Right.
And the more information a judge or a commissioner can have, the better their outcomes are going to be. If you show up and it's half filled out, it's missing the budget. It's missing what your pay stubs are. It's missing the debt part of it. You can't expect good orders from the court at the temporary order hearing or the final hearing if they don't even know what your financial situation is.
So if a client isn't sure that they have everything, what's the best way for them to check to make sure they're capturing all their debt, every credit card that's open, that they really understand that this is a complete document if their records aren't that great? Yeah.
So once they've been their own detective at home with the mail coming in, they can run their own credit report. And you can do that free through the different credit agencies. And once you get your credit report, you're going to see the credit cards. You're going to see debts. You'll see things that you may not even know that were on there. Since Wisconsin's community property, things will show up on there relating to you that you may not have even known happened along the way. So when your spouse gets a new credit card, typically you will get a letter in the mail saying your spouse has opened this credit card, but maybe you didn't get that. Maybe it was either not received or it was recycled before you.
Yes.
Yeah. Your credit report is going to show things on there. So you can run your own.
For sure.
You should, because not even worrying about our spouse, there's identity theft. So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself, you're seeing it regularly, you're understanding it's more than just the score. It is what is actually showing up in your credit.
Right. And I would actually recommend that people run it again during the proceeding as well, just to make sure that things weren't, popping up there that shouldn't be. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about marital debt, because I think people get confused about what they think they're going to have to pay and what they might not.
Sure. So in Wisconsin, when you get married, what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours, and that includes debt. And even if it's my credit card and I like to go to all the different stores and shop for myself, my spouse is responsible legally for half of that. And so if the spouse is hiding that, potentially you're still responsible.
Almost doesn't matter, right?
And people need to understand that credit agencies, credit card companies, mortgage, et cetera, they are not bound by your divorce paperwork. So I can have a temporary order. You can issue a temporary order saying so-and-so has to pay this credit card, pay this mortgage. The mortgage company won't care. The credit card company won't care. If one spouse is working, those are the wages they're going to go after, even with a court order, because a court order can't control them. They're not a party to it. You'll have recourse in your family court case, but ultimately you have to know all of the debts because they can come back even after the divorce is done. And that's normally when we would see people for contempt.
Right.
It could be 8 months after the divorce was final, 2 years after the divorce was final, and some credit card debt snuck out, or a foreclosure, or there was a repo for the car. And so then the spouse who wasn't even awarded that in the settlement had the
impacted.
Judgment, et cetera.
Yeah.
You can go back to divorce court. There's definitely recourse there, but you need to know going into things what it is.
Well, and in the interim, it's going to affect their credit rating, their ability to start their life over, and so it's really important to figure that out. Are there any other pitfalls in filling this out that you think people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I want to circle back to the debt, because if I'm not aware of a debt and it's not assigned in our final divorce paperwork and it sneaks out later on, first of all, we could have avoided that, and we can have a requirement that they refinance. So when you get divorced, your name is not automatically removed from people's debts, your spouse's debts. You can have requirements to refinance as part of your final decisions. And that is very prudent to do, because they have to take your name off the house. They have to take your name off the vehicle. They have to close the credit cards and reopen them. And so it's so important that you know all of the debts so that you're protecting yourself.
Right.
And some of the pro se paperwork doesn't include refinance provisions. You have to write that in there. But AI might not tell you that. Your friends, your family may not tell you that. So that goes all the way back to the attorneys who practice family law.
Right.
Not dabble in it, not handle it once in a while.
Right.
But the family law attorneys will know we need to get this refinanced, we need to have them shut down credit cards, et cetera. So I think that's also a pitfall, coming back to your question, for the financials, is you do your full financial disclosure. You took this seriously, but the other side didn't.
Right.
Well, you can ask the court for help then.
Right.
You can ask the court to order them to provide the documents, to order them to complete the different sections. So if your spouse just shows up and the retirement is blank, or it just says work, you'd be surprised at how often people will just, well, I know I've got something at work, but they didn't bother to go look it up. Don't accept that. Even if you're just representing yourself, and work with your attorney. If you have an attorney, they can do discovery. So, you know, the interrogatories.
Right.
That's just a fancy way of saying it's written questions. You ask them questions they have to answer under oath, and then production of documents. Make them give you the paperwork. I want all the retirement paperwork. I want copies of all your debts. I want your credit card statements. I want your credit statement if you've run one. So
Right.
you can absolutely do that. So that would be a big pitfall if you let them get away with not filing a complete financial disclosure statement.
Right, because you as a commissioner are making some temporary decisions with an idea that it will ultimately become permanent. And if you don't have the right information, what you're
Right.
deciding might not be
Yeah, and just to
prudent.
be clear as well, whether you have an attorney or not, you're preparing all the paperwork. The court is not. Unless you have a trial with a judge, and even then, the attorneys tend to do the paperwork for the judge to approve and sign. It's the judge's decision, but the attorneys will prepare it. Well, on the commissioner level, I'm not giving anyone a decision. You've reached agreements, or I used to. I shouldn't say now. I don't do that anymore. But back in the day, they would turn in their paperwork with all of their agreements on there. And commissioners are not supposed to rubber stamp it and just sign. So really good commissioners will look at the financial, make sure it's complete. If you leave a section blank, is it because there's none, et cetera? You ask the questions. And then also in your marital settlement agreement, make sure they match. So some commissioners are better than others, but ultimately you're responsible for your paperwork. So if it's in the financial disclosure statements, but you didn't put it in your marital settlement agreement and the court didn't catch it, that's ultimately on you. So you really have to be careful with your paperwork. And again, that comes to having an attorney who specializes in this as well. Like I said, Wisconsin has great pro se forms, but they're basic.
Right.
They're very
Right.
cursory documents
Yeah.
as opposed to this financial is 11 pages, or is it 7? I keep saying 11, but it's 7.
Yeah.
And then an attorney's financial might be 15.
Right.
Because
Have
there's
more
so-
nuanced things,
Yeah, it's more
especially depending on the complexity of the couple's assets and what else might be going on.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
And the state forms are one size fits all.
Yeah.
So you can attach things to it, but they're sort of designed for the masses, and an attorney can really tailor it to your needs, your situation,
Right.
your assets and debts.
Right. One of the interesting things we come across here at Johnson Financial Group is when a family is going through a divorce, we sometimes have worked with both parties throughout their marriage, and now they're divorcing, and now they want to both use us to help prepare the financial disclosure piece. That puts the advisors sometimes in some awkward situations. So a couple of things that I think are helpful, and you share with me from both perspectives if you think it was, when people have a financial plan in place that they've regularly updated and worked on with their advisor, filling out a financial disclosure can be a lot easier because it's all there and you've been tracking that throughout your financial married life. But then we get into, we're separating now. Sometimes people will ask to use the same person. That tends to be a conflict. How do you perceive that, and what do you advise when somebody is in that situation?
You have to look how actively involved they are with their advisor. And so the advisor is your fiduciary. They have a duty of loyalty to you. As a married couple, that's easy. You have the same goals, which is retire right away, early, get it done. Those differ now because maybe your goal is I want to go back to school and I need to finance certain things, whereas the other spouse still wants to retire early. And so now there's this split. You might even have joint assets. And so how are those going to be divided up? That's really not the role of the advisor to get involved, even if they have a JD, even if they're an
Right.
attorney,
We don't do that.
we don't want to see them practicing law
Correct.
when they should be giving financial advice and sort of mixing that up.
Right.
So there can be conflicts of interest, potentially waivable. If you have full disclosure, you sit down, here's what the goals are going to be, here's how we're dividing it up. But there's also the chance that it could be divergent, and it might be best to get your own advisor now, the other party get their own advisor, and move forward.
Right. And if you're working with a credible advisor, they often can make recommendations too and help you find a really trusted, experienced advisor to help you navigate your individual life, create your new plans, and do that quite well. Sometimes in the same institution, sometimes others. They just
Right.
really work to find out what's in the best interest of that client, I think. And then there are designations that people can have. Obviously, you're a JD, I'm a JD, so we have some background in that. But there's also financial advisors that have gotten the certification to be a certified divorce financial analyst as well. So looking for those designations might be helpful as well.
Absolutely. They've obviously specialized for a reason, and that's who you want because you're not starting over, but you're starting fresh.
That's right.
So having someone help you with those decisions, because you're not just signing up for the 401k through work. Now you've got, and you might have substantial assets that you are getting from the other party. What do? Are we rolling them over? Are we cashing some
Yeah,
out?
you're going to need that
Yes.
advice. You're going to need that team to help you make the best decisions.
Speaking of tax time, you want to avoid tax problems.
Right.
And in divorces, you can, because if someone does have retirement that you're taking a part of and you think you'll just cash that out and spend it, the government might knock on your door and say there's a tax consequence that you didn't think of when you were
Right.
dividing up assets. And that can then lead to more fights, more disputes. So working with someone, both your divorce attorney as well as a certified divorce financial analyst, they can highlight that for you while there's still time to act.
Right.
So parties have decided to divide up their retirement a certain way, and they already know the tax consequences and who's going to bear the burden if there is going to be one.
Right.
AI is not going to tell you that.
That's right. Makes perfect sense. So as we wrap up, some final thoughts on actionable things people can do if they're contemplating divorce.
Yes. Compartmentalize in your brain the emotions on one side, handle that with your friends, your family, counselors, etc. And then on the other side, I don't know if it's left or right, but the other side of your brain, become your own accountant, your own attorney, your own advocate. Grab a folder, put in all of the paperwork. The more organized you get, the more detailed you can be, the better of an asset you'll be if you choose to have an attorney, as well as your financial advisors or anyone that you encounter. If you're going it alone and you come into court and you are organized, you're already way ahead of the game. And that will help you with all of the paperwork. But that is the best advice, is you have to just pause and you have to be organized with your finances. This is your one shot to get it right.
Liz, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been incredibly informative. And this is just the first of a two-part series about navigating the complexities of divorce. In this episode, we focused on preparing for the initial hearing. In the next episode, we'll dive into things like what to expect with certain financial nuances, like cryptocurrency. What is marital waste? How do you deal with the family home? And some other divorce myths that both Liz and I have encountered. If you have questions you'd like us to tackle, please go to the show notes, type your question, and hit submit. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes of Your Money, Your Mission, the podcast designed to turn complex financial situations into actionable advice. Powered by Johnson Financial Group.
This podcast is not a recommendation to buy or sell any investment or financial products. Whether a particular investment or financial solution is right for you depends on the facts of your particular situation. Please consult your own professional advisors prior to taking any action based on the content of this podcast. Wealth management services are provided through Johnson Bank and Johnson Wealth Incorporated, Johnson Financial Group companies. Additional information about Johnson Wealth Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, and its investment advisor representatives is available at advisorinfo.set.com. Investment products are not insured by FDIC, are not deposits, and may lose value.